Most things in life, I've had to figure out for myself. How to make money, how to write a resume, how to talk to boys. But when it came to signing up for health insurance, I had a hard time figuring it out on my own. Turns out, I didn't have to. Covered California was made by Californians for Californians. They have experts to walk you through the process and financial help for people who need it. Enrollment ends January 31st. Go to coveredca.com. Covered California. This way to health insurance.
We are not profit, but Big Tobacco thinks every black face is another place to make a quick buck. Give to our communities to gain trust, but still filling us with poisons and calling it culture. Pick bills off our bones like vultures. I am not a prophet, but I can see menthol sell cheaper in black hoods, and they're harder to quit because they numb the throat. Their market is the black and the stupid. That's a quote. It's time for black folks to see menthols as another attack. Visit wearenotprofit.org to fight back.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. What's going on, everybody? So I've had a lot of people ask me about the pictures that I post on Twitter, and some folks were asking if those prints were for sale. And the good news is they most certainly are. I have a profile set up on Pickfair where you can go over and purchase some of my prints. Right now I have 4 prints on there, I believe, and by the end of the day today, there will be 12 or so on there. So make sure that if you're interested in some of those pictures and you've sent me a message before asking about them, well, they will be there now for purchase if that is something you are interested in. Now, as you all know, I really don't have much to sell you as far as the Jeffrey Epstein case goes. I'm not writing any books or any of that stuff at all. It's just with the pictures, it's something that I've always really enjoyed doing, right? And now that Pickfair has a place where I could just post my pictures the same as I would on like Instagram or something, and it gives people the ability to purchase them if they'd like, I think that's a pretty cool deal. So if you're interested in those kind of pictures, landscape pictures, pictures of, the great Southwest, mainly Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Southern California, national parks all across the West Coast, that kind of stuff. If you're interested in that, the link to the Pickfair page will be in the description box, along with the link to this article that we're going to get into and to the PayPal if you're looking to help out the podcast. All right, so on to today's article. We're going to talk a little bit about this article in the New York Post about Glenn Dubin and the subpoena from the Virgin Islands. Now, we were way ahead of the curve here, right? OK Magazine and Chris Spargo talked about this a couple of weeks ago. And like I've said, Chris Spargo over at OK Magazine has been all over this. And they've done a fantastic job with the news that's coming out of the Virgin Islands. And Chris especially deserves a tip of the cap, no doubt about it. Him, Kate Bricklet, those are two of the journalists that have been covering this case that really stand out to me, that have done a fantastic job. And I think that it's pretty telling that OK Magazine and Chris Spargo are so ahead of the curve when it comes to this subpoena situation. Now, the New York Post is usually way out ahead of things when it comes to page 6 kind of reporting. But this comes a few weeks after we had originally learned about this. The reason I'm adding it to the catalog this morning is, like usual, we'll get some context and perhaps we'll glean a little nugget or two that we missed the first time around. So we're going to talk about bitch-ass Glenn Dubin and the fact that him and his wife were a lot closer to Jeffrey Epstein than they'd like to let on. And now Denise George, man, I almost just called her Denise Richards. Denise George down in the Virgin Islands, the attorney general down there, she is involved in a civil RICO case right now against Epstein and his estate. And she has fired off all sorts of subpoenas to Glenn Dubin in relation to Glenn Dubin's children and their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So shit's getting hot and heavy down in the Virgin Islands, as we have known. And let me tell you what, as much as I'm not a fan of Denise George looking for that money grab, I am a big fan of the way she has pursued this. I'm a big fan of her firing off a grip of subpoenas, and I want more, right? I think that not only subpoenas, there should be some indictments down there, and she should arrest some people. That would be fantastic. Let's turn this civil racketeering case into an actual criminal RICO case down in the Virgin Islands, and then have 2 concurrent RICO investigations running at the same time. Boy, that would be fantastic, and that certainly would make up some ground that they had lost throughout these decades, huh? All right, so our article, New York Post, headline, Jeffrey Epstein case subpoena seeks documents related to billionaire Glenn Dubin's kids. Author Isabel Vincent. Now, let's just pump the brakes right away. Imagine being Glenn Dubin and his wife and having your kids embroiled in this whole entire brouhaha. You are supposed to protect your children from shit like this. Not have them hang out with Uncle Jeffy. Not have Uncle Jeffy have a trust in their name. Not have Uncle Jeffy as the Godfather. And certainly, the last thing you want is your children's names being brought up in an investigation into one of the most prolific pedophiles in the history of America. Talk about a failure as a human, and talk about a failure as a parent. It just goes to show you all the money in the world, all of the status in the world, doesn't mean shit if you're a douche. U.S. Virgin Islands prosecutors are demanding billionaire, MoMA benefactor, and board member Glenn Dubin turn over all communications that his friend Jeffrey Epstein had with Dubin's 3 children. It's gross, right, to read that. I know I have a penchant for being a sarcastic person when it comes to this stuff, and I think that is the proper measure when we're dealing with these people. But at the same time, it's spine-tingling and gross and chilling to think that your children would be involved in a subpoena that has to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Now look, I'm not a parent. I don't have any kids. I have 4 dogs. Those are like my kids. And I wouldn't let my dogs spend a minute with Jeffrey Epstein. Never mind my children. And then you want to add a little whipped cream on top of that banana split? Oh yeah, now your kids' names are being brought up in legal documents, subpoenas, that have to do with Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise. Glenn Dubin, Eva Dubin, you both suck as human beings and, obviously, as parents. A subpoena seeks all documents and communications related to any of your 3 children, May, Selena, or Jordan, which also relate in any way to Jeffrey Epstein or any Epstein entity. This is how you put the pieces together, folks. This is how you build a case. Remember when I told you that RICO is very invasive and that RICO charges are far-reaching, meaning even people in your family can get caught up in it? Well, you're seeing it here, but in a civil version. Now, the criminal version of this is even worse, even more draconian. You ask me how I know? Well, I've experienced it firsthand in my life. I've had a loved one face RICO charges. I've had a loved one look at 100 RICO charges, all right? And that's what they do. They throw a bunch of RICO charges at you. And then they go after the people that you loved, anybody you might have given money to. They'll tap your children's phones. They'll do all sorts of wild shit when they have RICO power. And you see that here when they're bringing up the names of his children, and it's just the part and parcel for how a RICO investigation is conducted. And once the FBI gets their teeth sunk in on a RICO investigation, at least to regular folks. All right, Italian folks anyway, right? Because I can only speak about my experiences and what my people have dealt with. So when they start with that RICO shit, forget it. It doesn't matter if you're a 16-year-old kid walking home from school. They're going to try and hem you up and ask you about your loved one, try and put you in the back of that car. They're going to try and threaten you. They're going to try and tell you that your parents are going to go to jail if you don't talk to them. And this is the kind of shit the FBI does against us, the average citizen. But when it comes to bitch-ass mother effers like Glenn Dubin and the rest of this posse of scumbags, they don't get that kind of treatment. They get overlooked. They get lost in the sauce. They get moved around in the system. But me or you or your loved one, forget it. They get involved in bookmaking? Well, they're looking at 7 years, 7 prime years taken away from them and from them and their families. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Epstein, 13 months? I'll just say right now, straight up, point blank period, F the FBI, okay? They're a bunch of scumbags. They're corrupt. The whole organization is corrupt, in my opinion. The island's attorney general is probing alleged racketeering by the late billionaire pedophile and has issued subpoenas to numerous Epstein associates, including lawyers, accountants, and bankers. Now, again, I really wish that we'd see this in the SDNY. And I think we're going to once we get another arrest, if we get another arrest. But I'm on record saying that if it doesn't go RICO, then, in my opinion, the fix is most certainly in. And that will be the most telling sign that the elite are once again protecting the elite. This is a RICO case if I have ever seen one. And we have the proof right there in the pudding with Keith Raniere getting himself 120 years under RICO and racketeering. Allison Mack gets charged with racketeering and RICO, but Ghislaine Maxwell doesn't. It doesn't sit well with me. And if it doesn't go RICO, then you know for a fact that the fix is in, and I will definitely be on every mountaintop yelling even louder than I am now about the corruption in the government. And for those of you who think that Joe Biden is going to ride in on his white horse, swinging his sword and cutting down all of the orcs of evil around us, folks, I got bad news for you. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. The idea is to stop sending people like Biden to D.C. And I get it, right? A lot of people hate Trump, and this was a referendum on Trump, and I understand completely. But at the same time, you must stay vigilant. Just because Biden has been elected as the president-elect of the United States of America doesn't mean that we all throw up our hands and say, all right, things are going to go back to normal. Everything's good. Nothing is good. Nothing is normal. We've had a look behind the curtain now, folks. We can't go back. It's only moving forward now. There is no retreating. There is no regrouping. There is forming a vanguard and smashing hard right into the heart of the elite's lines and crushing them and putting them on their back foot and making them scatter for once. And that's going to happen if we do it. No politician's going to save us, Joe Biden or otherwise. One of you out there in the audience, run for office, you might save us. One of you good-hearted people with a moral compass who understands that the work of the people is more important than enriching yourself, you might save us. But none of these retread-ass politicians are going to save us, just like none of these asshole coaches who have never succeeded anywhere in the NFL are going to make a team succeed magically when they get hired again. Epstein, who hanged himself, allegedly, in a Manhattan lockup last year, had openly declared his plans to marry Selena Dubin, sources told Business Insider last year. Epstein and Selena developed an especially close relationship when Selena was 12, and it continued into adulthood, according to the Palm Beach Post. The whole thing was weird, right? This whole thing with Selena Dubin and Jeffrey Epstein, always odd in my opinion. I mean, why in the hell, as an adult, as a parent, would you have this little kid calling Jeffrey Epstein Uncle Jeffy, sitting on his lap? You know what he was. Hell, after he was arrested, you had him over for some good old turkey dinner. Meanwhile, You're going to try and distance yourself from Jeffrey Epstein? You're going to try and act like you weren't one of his top dogs? And that your wife wasn't his chick back in the day? Who knows? You guys might have still been doing the same kind of thing. You might have still been, who knows what kind of relationship these people had. Maybe they were involved in a throuple. Who the hell knows? My point is this. They were very, very close to Jeffrey Epstein. Selena wrote glowingly of their weekly science lesson when Uncle Jeff, as she calls him, takes time from his personal business schedule to go over to her apartment and discuss science and mathematics lessons she is learning at school, reported the newspaper, citing a profile prepared by Epstein's lawyers in 2007, the year they negotiated a non-prosecution agreement that allowed him to avoid federal sex trafficking charges. So The most ironic thing about this is that the Dubins themselves opened their mouth in this can of worms by writing this glowing report for Jeffrey Epstein. They involved their daughter. They brought their kids into this. And they were the ones who put their kids in jeopardy, in my opinion, by having them around a scumbag like Uncle Jeffy Epstein. There is no evidence that Epstein ever had a romantic relationship with Selena, now 25, according to Business Insider, adding that his motivation to marry her might have been driven by his desire to leave her his fortune and avoid inheritance taxes. That makes no sense, okay? Sorry, really? Jeffrey Epstein, Mr. Scumbag extraordinaire himself, couldn't have found a way to launder that money to marry her. That's why he wanted to marry her? No, let's stop making excuses for these people. He wanted to, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes right here, folks. You can't see me, but that's what I'm doing. He wanted to marry her? No. He wanted to be romantically involved with her. He wanted to abuse her, and he wanted to do what he did with every other young teenage girl he came into contact with. All right, let's not sugarcoat it anymore. Let's not cut corners. Let's not act like Glenn Dubin and his wife deserve the benefit of the doubt. They do not. Look, this isn't like a regular case, right? Where everything's happening in real time and shit's convoluted and we don't know up from down. There's spin, there's propaganda. Of course there's that. But we've had plenty of years to go through all of these details with a fine-tooth comb. We've had plenty of time to compile these articles. And we know from the articles that we have read about Glenn Dubin and his wife that they are scuzzbags and that they are very much involved with Jeffrey Epstein on an intimate level. No pun intended. The subpoena, which was filed in Virgin Islands Superior Court in September, is also seeking all financial records between Dubin, who is married to Epstein's former beauty queen girlfriend, Eva Anderson Dubin, and Epstein. It also seeks all documents and communications with a Swedish female traveling with or employed by Epstein. That's huge. That is the little girl that cried to the guy in Dubin and Eva Anderson's kitchen, right? The little Swedish girl that we've talked about that we always wondered what the hell happened to this kid. Well, she is also involved in this, and they're asking for documentation that has to do with their contact with this unnamed 15-year-old Swedish girl. Who in the hell is this poor kid, folks? Where is she? What has become of her? And I can only hope that she is doing okay now. Court papers unsealed a day before Epstein's death last year included allegations that a 15-year-old Swedish girl was held against her will on Epstein's compound in the Virgin Islands. The girl allegedly told her story to Ronaldo Rizzo, a chef who worked for the Dubin family, according to court papers. Now remember, this isn't just hearsay. This isn't just shit thrown at the wall. That's for other people involved in this Jeffrey Epstein case to do. That's an adventure for them to take you on. We don't do that here on this podcast, okay? Our work speaks for itself. Everything we talk about is in the newspapers and based on court documentation. When I go hard on somebody here on the podcast, you better damn believe there is a reason, folks. And that is exactly what we have here with the Dubins. All of this stuff is court documented. This man gave this statement under oath, and it's obvious that the Dubins are being protected right along with Jeffrey Epstein, but they shouldn't be. Our prosecutors and our justice system should be big game hunting right now. Both Dubin and his wife, who dated Epstein for 11 years, have vigorously denied any knowledge of Epstein's wrongdoing. A spokesman for Dubin refused to comment last week. And let's not forget also, okay, the 500-pound gorilla in the room. Not only is Dubin accused of all of this nonsense, okay? Let's not forget what Virginia alleges happened to her at the hands of Glenn Dubin when she was trafficked to him. All right? Let's keep that in the forefront of our mind. And the scumbags who have been mentioned by Virginia as people who have actually partaken in the abuse, those people all need to be brought in under the auspices of this grand investigation. They all need to be spoken with. Those aren't allegations of stealing a bologna sandwich or, you shoved me in the street. These are serious allegations that need to be looked into. And Glenn Dubin, my friends, is setting himself up for a huge fall from grace, in my opinion. In addition to Dubin, a subpoena in the Epstein case has also been served on billionaire Leon Black, who is a member of the Museum of Modern Art's board of directors along with Dubin. Fellow travelers, huh? And what do you think? It's just a coincidence that all of these scuzzbags are in the art world or the modeling world or the world of finance? No. These people have been scummy since the start of time. I mean, look, I'm not a religious guy, right? That's not my thing. But I will tell you this. I believe that Jesus was a real man. And who did he get pissed off at, right? The bankers. The only people he ever got pissed off at? Flipped over their table, the whole flip. And that's because bankers, even since before Jesus was around, have been scumbag shitbirds who have done nothing but destroy the poor populations that they're in charge of lending to. And Glenn Dubin and Leon Black and the rest of the pieces of shit that come from that world all deserve the karma train that has just left the station, that is barreling towards them at light speed. In January, Virgin Islands Attorney General Denise George sued Epstein's estate, alleging violation of the Virgin Law's civil racketeering law. And that's what I was talking about earlier about the civil RICO case. That's what she's engaged in here, folks. And she's engaged in a Mongolian type of campaign of scorched earth, right? She's trying to be Genghis Khan and stand atop all of these skulls when she's done. But my question is, why is it just civil? Let's move it out of the realm of civil and move it into the criminal realm down in the Virgin Islands too. Because I've said a million times on this podcast, I don't care how these people end up in jail. I don't care if it's financial crimes or crimes due to their participation with Jeffrey Epstein. All I care about at this point, folks, is justice. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. And to everybody who has donated to the podcast and who has supported my work, I appreciate you all more than you will ever know. All right, everybody, we will be back tonight for sure with a daily drop. Last night, way too tired after UFC, and I figured, you guys could go a night without hearing me whinge. All right, folks, so until later on, I hope you all enjoy your Sunday.
For the ones who know that a little late is always too late, and that the clock doesn't stop just because you're missing a part, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry. And our Keep Stock inventory management solutions help ensure you have the right stuff in the right place at exactly the right time. Visit Grainger.com/keepstock to learn more. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome to Virtual Meditation with Shiloh.
Hello?
Today we're working on forgiving ourselves for not knowing the difference between upload and download speeds before getting cable internet.
That's oddly specific.
Repeat after me. I am not my cable internet.
Wait, I don't have cable.
I'm not a bad, if my video calls, more like video stalls.
Hey, Shiloh, there's something...
I will get AT&T fiber.
And I will switch classes until you do.
Slow upload speeds? You're not a bad person. You just need better internet. With 20 times faster upload speeds, AT&T Fiber delivers a faster internet experience than cable. Get AT&T Fiber with no annual contract. Limited availability in select areas. Call 1-877-ONLY-ATT. Check eligibility at att.com/getfiber based on combined internet 1000 wired up and download capacity versus major cable providers 1 gig service with uploads of 35 megabits per second. Speeds vary, not guaranteed. Restrictions apply.